I love the online vintage world. It's a way for us to exchange ideas and information and trade together and have such a great time. And sometimes things go really smoothly and sometimes there's a few foibles. We had a little of each this month. We put 20 items on eBay and we had pretty good success. We sold 18 of them. We're going to talk about that right now so that you can see what we learned in the process and what might help you with your future eBay shopping or future listings if you sell. One of the items that we put on at the last minute was this piece. This was a substitution for another item we have, and I'm really glad that I got it on there because Tamis Keefe was a really talented textile designer, and she only got about a 10-year career because she died unfortunately in the early 1960s. So Tamis Keefe is the name you're looking for. You can see her name in the lower left corner of this particular piece here. It also has the label right there for Kimball, all linen. And Kimball was the line that was sold through Lord & Taylor, and that's what made Tamis Keefe very famous as a textile designer. She did all sorts of stuff for them and for other companies as well. I just am a big fan of her work, and I was so glad to introduce her. This particular piece, which I got in a stack of hankies for very little money, I picked out the one that had her name on it, and it went for $13.50. And hers typically do go between $10 and $25 each, depending on the graphics. So I was pleased with that, and it was nice to send this to somebody who could use it for the first time because it's got its original label, never had been used. I thought this was just beautiful. It went for $76 on 4 bids. I had a number of Art Deco pieces, and our big mistake this month had to do with one of them, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But this wonderful sconce lamp, aluminum, right out of the 1930s. Aluminum was a lightweight material that had been very expensive and suddenly was available to people for inexpensive prices, and it ended up being made into everything from tableware to lighting. And I just think this one's really sweet. It did not have a maker name or an attribution. The price it went for was a good deal for the person who bought it, and it's just such an attractive piece. I hope they're enjoying it on their wall. It got 4 bids and sold for $76. I have been listening to other eBay sellers talk about selling studio pottery from the 1980s, 90s, and beyond. I found this piece in Wyoming at a junk store for about $6, and I thought that it was so well done and had such a good signature, which I'm going to show you here. Clouds of Folsom, and Clouds Folsom, the Clouds were the couple who were involved in this company, and then they had another partner, and in the early years they did a lot of these overlap glazes, very similar to what Robert Maxwell was doing in Southern California about 20 years earlier. As time went on, they went more into floral designs and things that don't look like this, so this is an early piece for them. I really like the glaze. When you're doing stoneware, it basically is a reduction. You take all the oxygen out of the kiln. So controlling where the glaze goes is a little bit difficult. And I thought this one had a really interesting direction that the glaze went. It almost looks like figures dancing to me on the front of it. So I thought it was attractive, and a bunch of other people did too. It got 5 bids and sold for $26, which with shipping is about where they should go. This piece also got $26 on 7 bids. I just thought this was really fun. This is the United States map. It is die cut. It says it's die cut on the state lines. Well, you can look in the box there and you can see it's not really die cut on the state lines. It's die cut wherever the heck they decided to put a line. This is when puzzles were just starting to be interlocking. And so to put this together, you really have to be a little bit more careful because you bump the table and it'll be in pieces. West Virginia was cut right down to one single state, and yet other states were multiples altogether. So it's a very odd way that they cut this. But this was done by Sellrite, which is the same company that did Scrabble. And around the same time, this is late 1940s, it shows Alaska. Doesn't show Hawaii. Sorry, Hawaii. $26 is about the price that these typically go for. Maps are pretty collectible, especially anything that's before the interstate highways. And this particular one, when we look at the cover, shows mainly railroad lines of that time. This one I thought would go a little higher. I was actually surprised. This is Kentucky Derby. It went for $14.99 on 1 bid. I actually imagined it might go for $10 more. But I released this video right in the middle of the Kentucky Derby weekend, and it really was supposed to go out a few days before. So there's one mistake that actually hurt us a little bit, and that's our mistake. Sometimes you just can't meet your timing. Because of my travel, I needed to delay the release of this video a couple of days because there were a lot of buy it nows, and I wasn't in a position to stop along the way through the Plain States and try to find a way to pack and ship the things. So we delayed the release, and that meant this was just a little bit off schedule. I think it's an interesting piece. It was the very first race of 1948. And that was 75 years ago, and it just had its 150th anniversary right when we released this. The lot of 4 real photo postcards. They are not one of a kind. They were printed as postcards by some photographer who took these pictures. What was really interesting to me was the information on the back, where the people who bought them talked about how the houses did better than the schools. And you can see the schools did not fare well, particularly this school here or this school here. And on the back, they said politics and graft were the reason why. And there may have been some truth to that. There were major building improvements and building standards were implemented, especially for schools as a result of the 1933 Long Beach earthquake. So we did learn something from all of this. They went for $9.99 on one bid. They are postcards rather than real photos themselves, but they're called real photo postcards because they're based on actual photography rather than an illustration or a painting or something that somebody drew. This piece was so pretty, and she went for what I thought she should go. She sold for $112.50 on 15 bids. So she basically doubled from the initial offering price up to this. I thought she was just so cute. She's got a great figure. This is 1930s where nude figures are considered streamlined and graceful, and it was looked at as being artful. And so for that reason, we see a lot of this type of work in that time period. I just thought this was really beautiful. And she was in pretty good condition overall, just one little bump on her nose. The tray she's holding is Manhattan glass from 1938, so we have an idea of her era. She looks like a new art piece. There was no marking, so I didn't want to claim she was, so I said new art style. And I really recommend, if you are not absolutely sure about an attribution and you're selling something on eBay, put in the style of, appears to be, seems to be, things that give people a clue that they need to do a little more due diligence and not just assume that, well, it looks like new art, so it must be new art, because that is a great way to end up with a returned item and somebody very unhappy who won't bid with you again. This is another great deco piece. I had a lot of deco in this flight of items, and I was so pleased to get it. This one went for $115. This is the Weller Lorbeek Flower Frog, and it's a crazy-looking stacked thing with a lot of streamlined design, but the vases and everything are very angular, have lots of reeding and ribs, and are just really interesting pieces, and this would have gone in the middle of the console bowl, and so it's a flower arranger, or a flower frog as they call. And that's why you see all of the holes in the bottom with the Weller pottery ink stamp. Weller was trying to compete with Roseville's very popular Futura line right at a time when people did not have money. This came out in 1931, so it's a hard to find line now. It came in lavenders and gray tones, and this one is more to the gray tone. And one person needed it for their bowl, and that's all it took. Now we're going up to 1980s and 90s Deco Revival. See the copyright sign right there on the side that says Aram, A-R-A-M. These are Michael Aram coasters. There's a set of 6. The stand also is signed, which you can see down on the bottom here. It has his signature down underneath. This is a very, very talented designer who mainly does large sculptural pieces now. Kind of along the line of if you took a Curtis Juret and expanded it to something that would be installed in a lobby of an office building or something like that. So Michael Aram has come a long way, but his designs always had a certain feel to them. They're both Deco Revival and a little bit primitive at the same time. And I think the fact that he hit that in the 1980s when people were really into Deco and starting to collect it meant that his stuff was very timely. Well, now it's been 40 years and it's very timely again because we have people collecting the Deco Revival items from the 1980s as well as collecting the original pieces from the 30s and 40s. So this went for $45 on one bid. Another great Deco piece. I just love The color, the shape, the softness of the glaze. This is May and Vive Hamilton. You see the signature here for Vernon Kilns of California. They only did work from 1936 to 1937 for Vernon Kilns. This is the Rose Bowl. They did a lot of figural pieces as well. This went for $125. This actually went on a buy it now right away to one of our regular viewers. And thank you so much for your membership contribution. You know who you are. I won't call you out in front of everybody, but I'm so glad that you saw something else that you liked. And well, membership has its perks. We really appreciate our members and all of the support that they give us so that we're able to bring you these extra videos, extra content, and the members do get early access to this. So if you are interested in membership and would like early access to our eBay listings every month, go to the membership link under the dashed line in any of the descriptions of any of our videos, and you'll be able to find out more about it and how you can help support the channel and get some perks for yourself. This is a piece that I was surprised didn't go higher. It went for $50 on 2 bids. It is the Mark Belair Beachcomber Charger. It's so modernist. Not everybody's a fan of the pinhead. I think it's really interesting because the focus is really on the motion of the body and the physique, and it's very abstract. Mark Belair started with Sasha Brostoff, so if this seems like it has a Sasha Brostoff feel, well, that's because he was one of Sasha Brostoff's earliest designers, and you can kind of tell that in everything going on in the background here, the use of colors. But Belair struck out on his own, and you can see the Belair signature in the middle of the bottom of this piece, as well as on the front. And you'll see that in this little black cartouche there where it says Belair. It's a great piece. I think someone got a real deal on it. When you take shipping into account, it probably sold for about what they sell for. They typically go for about $75 to $100, and with the shipping, it was about that amount. And you have to remember, when you're listing on eBay, from the customer's perspective, the amount they are paying is the full amount with shipping. That's what they paid for the item. They're not breaking it down into, well, the post office got this much and I got this much. That's you as a seller thinking that way. So you have to kind of take yourself out of your head and look at what would this piece go for, including shipping. That's the total value at, say I put it in a retail store and the shipping's $25. Well, I should price this around $75 because that's what the person actually paid for it. This was just fun. I got it for a few dollars at an estate sale. I thought it would be fun to see if there was a customer for this, and there was. I got $9.99 on one bid. It is made in USA, and that is important with these. And it has the foam front. That's how you tell the earlier ones. The foam piece in the front was the way that these were made in the late 1970s and early 1980s. If they got worn a lot, they tended to get very crusty. If they were stored badly, they can harden, or they'll just start falling apart. So finding these in good condition is the key. And this one seemed to have practically never have been used. I assume because I got it in an estate in Ohio that the person who lived in the house worked for the Moraine Assembly, got this hat when they were working for Chevrolet. And apparently they took it home and they never wore it. So it was in great condition. This I thought was just beautiful. And I have to say, in the picture, I think it shows even better. This is a Solje brooch. It is, I hope I'm pronouncing that anywhere close to right. They were a Norwegian tradition. The little bells and all the attachments were to help you go through the woods so that the trolls would not get you on the way to your wedding. So these typically were done as part of wedding costumes, although there are a lot of people who just love the look and like to buy them and wear them now because it's a nice piece of jewelry. Here it is from the back. This one went for $65 on 16 bids. I was very thankful to Miss Wildlife, who you see in our chat sometimes. She was willing to sell this to me at the Custer show in Spokane, and I thought it was so pretty and so interesting after she showed me that I wanted to share it with everybody, and we did share it with somebody for $65, which is a pretty typical price for these. This one's a little more ornate. It potentially could have even gone a little higher. You notice it looks like silver, and it is sterling, but it also has a gold wash. That's Vermeer, where they do a little bit of a gold wash to make the piece look even a little more fancy and also to bring out some of its elements. All the work that went into this, can you imagine just trying to put all of that together? I was really thrilled with this piece and the fact that it sold, because this I have had for a long time. These are the names of the people who were working for the Pilgrim Glass Company around 1990. And the only reason I ended up with this piece is I was involved with the store that sold their factory seconds and overruns out in Washington State. And this erroneously was shipped to us in a box. And they said, well, we gave one to all the workers, so I guess we don't really need it back. And we didn't know what to do with it. At the time they were still in business, no one was thinking this would be historically significant. Well, Pilgrim went out of business in 2001. And so now, 20 some years later, there are a whole bunch of people interested in art glass, interested in the people who worked for Pilgrim and their designs, and all of these people have been memorialized in this way. So this went to somebody's collection who was a serious collector, 13 bids. So a lot of people really like this piece. It is truly one of a kind, and I'm so glad that this ended up in the serious collector's collection and that they can enjoy it and share this with people in the future. It's just great to me to see the work, and in this case, the signatures of the people who did all of this work preserved for future generations. This, I was very pleased and a little surprised. It went a little higher than I thought it might. It went for $40 on 12 bids. It did go to one of our regular customers who I very much enjoy. She's a lovely person and a great collector and a viewer, and I was pleased that she got it. I wasn't surprised in a way. I kind of, after a while you get to know your customers, even online and even on eBay, and you start finding things you think would be interesting for them. And I had a feeling she might like this, and I'm glad she did. It's such an interesting story. There's the fox and Brer Rabbit going after the tar baby. There's a lot of misunderstanding about this because the author, he spent time in a plantation, he was around the slaves, he heard the folklore, he was a big redheaded white man, and over the years, Joel Chandler Harris, who is one of the great American authors, has been put down a little bit for cultural appropriation. That's not really a very fair claim to make when somebody actually spent his time hanging out with the slaves and getting to know their folklore and representing it so that it could be shared with the rest of society. And so I think he deserves a lot of kudos for what he did. There's definitely a lot of revisionist history about him. And because of that, a lot of people have a real misunderstanding about what the Tar Baby book is even about. I've even heard people say that it's terribly, terribly racist, and there is actually no allusion to anything racial in it at all. So I encourage people to actually read things and not just assume things based on what they have been told. And this is the first time I've gotten to read this book as an adult, and it's very sweet and has a very good message, which is not to assume things about other people just based on what you can see. This is the piece, The Big Mistake. I said right in the title that this was designed by Walter von Nessen. I got a very helpful email in the middle of the listing about 3 or 4 days in saying that is not a von Nessen piece. I already had bids on this piece by then. And when that happens, the only right thing to do is to go to the high bidder and say, look, I found out something about this that I didn't know. I'm going to share it with you, and if you want to rescind your bid after I tell you, you are welcome to. That is the only right way to deal with this. You don't just let it roll and then hope they don't catch your mistake later. The designer on this turned out to be, I believe it was Harry Layton, who worked for Chase. The person who was the high bidder said, oh, I'm aware of that, and it's not a problem. Harry Layton was a great designer, and my interest in this is that you almost never see it with the ivory attachments. It's generally the black or the darker, and so he was very interested in this piece. Well, so were a lot of people, because it ended up tripling in price after I discovered the mistake and put it in the listing. It sold for $337 on 17 bids. It is a hard-to-find Chase cocktail set from the 1930s. It is a great design, even though it was not a von Nessen design. I have to admit, I tried to do the research, and then I made an assumption because von Nessen was known for integrating celluloid and bakelite and other materials into the chrome pieces he made for Chase. And so I assumed that it must have been his. And it turned out that, well, he did that, and then other designers there thought that was a great idea too. So just goes to show we can all still learn. I did learn something from this, and thankfully the customers were not fazed because they knew what they were getting. Honest representation, that's what it takes, especially online when people can't be there to see it and talk to you directly about it. We did have one other sale, and it was a Born Pottery bowl. We did not actually have an eBay completion on that because I was working with the customer to bulk ship other items, and I said, well, don't pay the eBay invoice until I can get you a total shipping price for everything, and then we'll do a shipping label. Well, I did that for her, and by the time I got it done, eBay canceled the order and then made it seem like they did me a big favor because she hadn't paid. I was working with her. She did pay. So we sent her the bowl, and she was very happy. It went for $22.50 and was very nice and looks great in her collection. These two items were the only ones that didn't sell. This was the instructional film set, and I think if I had a Super 8 and could project and show a little bit of this, that this would have had a chance to sell, because So You Want a Job and How to Keep Myself Healthy were the instructional videos in this particular group, and it has the film and all the paperwork. There are people who collect these, but they are people who have the projectors and can see what they are. And so if I had been able to present that a little bit more completely, I think this would have sold, because others certainly do. I'll take it to some shows and see if we can find someone there who can take it home and watch it themselves. And the other item that didn't sell was this pre-linen postcard. As I look at the picture now, I realize it's a great sample postcard. It's Valdez, Alaska before the landslide. All of this is underwater now. All of Valdez is over a few miles to the west of this, at the base of this mountain, because a huge landslide took all of this out that you see. And so it doesn't exist anymore. And that is one of the things that usually sells postcards, or things that don't exist. But when I look at the picture now, I'm realizing that really makes the card look ragged. The card wasn't ragged. It looks like the finish is uneven. That really wasn't true in person. Sometimes photos are a little too good, and this is one of those cases. So we'll work on our photography and do better next time. But I was really pleased with sales overall, because we sold lots of fun things for not too high prices, and a few really special things for the prices they should have. Thank you so much to those of you who follow along with this. Thank you to our collectors who buy, and thank you so much for our members who make these extra bonus videos possible. We will have another flight of items coming up on eBay, and I've got some special things picked out for this month, so keep watching and you'll see the notifications for that coming very soon.
If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video, and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help, and we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.